What if the thing you're calling fate is just a habit of attention? What if the animals that cross your path, the storms that rattle your windows, and the voices that pull at your mood are not prophecies, but mirrors reflecting the one faculty that, if you train it, makes you unshakable? By the end of this film, you will know exactly which faculty that is, how to practice it under pressure, and why, once you learn to hold it steady, the omens stop shouting because you finally start listening. Keep one image with you as we begin, a web glistening with morning dew. We'll come back to it at the moment you least want to look. This is educational philosophy, an invitation to examine your life with the best tools the ancient Stoics honed and modern psychology still tests. It is not therapy, not medical or legal counsel, and not individualized advice. Your particulars matter. Take what fits, leave what doesn't, and consult qualified professionals for decisions that carry weight in health, law, or finance. What I can offer is a set of principles you can test immediately in the lab of your own day. Why this matters now is painfully simple. Your attention is the doorway through which your life is shaped, and most doorways today are rigged to capture you. Feeds are tuned to outrage. Workplaces reward speed over sanity. Families, even loving ones, can run on unspoken rules that punish boundaries. Under that pressure, it's tempting to outsource meaning to signs, to read coincidences as commands, or to collapse into numbness and call it Stoicism. Both mistakes, superstition and shutdown, quietly transfer your agency to something outside you. The Stoics aimed at the opposite. Inner command joined to outer skill. They trained a mind that could look at the same world everyone else sees and act with clarity, dignity, and proportion. Before we step into practice, clear a few misconceptions. Stoicism is not indifference to people. It is indifference to outcomes you cannot control, so that you can care better about the people in front of you. It is not fatalism. It is preparation. It is not suppression of feeling, it is stewardship of reaction. Emotions arise like weather, gusts of chemistry moving through the body. The Stoic move is to recognize the first gust for what it is, then steer the ship you actually command, your judgments, your intentions, your choices. Now the first principle, laid bare in plain English. There are two categories of things: what depends on you and what does not. Your opinions, values, and voluntary actions live in the first category. Everything else, other people's choices, the economy, the weather, your past lives, in the second. You will suffer most when you invest energy trying to control what lives outside the first category. That's the clean version. The nuance is messier and more humane. Some situations are braided. Your influence can matter without being decisive. You may not control whether a team adopts your plan, but your preparation, tone, and timing change the odds. In the real world, where power dynamics exist and incentives are uneven, cold purity helps nobody. So you learn to do two things at once: release ownership of outcomes you cannot guarantee, and develop shrewdness about the levers you can ethically pull. Think of it as a disciplined commander who accepts the weather but studies the terrain and moves the pieces with a steady hand. If there is one faculty to train, it is the power of choice. The Stoics called it the ruling principle. Everything else flows from its condition. The ruling principle is the lens through which impressions strike you. An impression is the first hit of a moment. A message arrives late, a driver cuts you off, a sudden quiet falls, and a memory returns. You can endorse the impression, let it colonize your mood, and act from that capture, or you can pause, examine, and choose. That micro-gap is freedom. Train it enough, and your mind becomes a fortress, with open gates for truth and closed gates for panic. Let the world speak, but hear it accurately. A butterfly on the windowsill is not a decree about your destiny. It is a prod to remember that transformation is a law of nature, and your resistance is optional. The ancient naturalists would have called this living in agreement with nature. things grow, dissolve, and reassemble. In your life that looks like the end of a role that once fit, the soft funeral of a belief that helped you until it hurt, the awkwardness of practicing a new identity that hasn't earned muscle memory yet. Transformation is beautiful when you look backward and rugged when you live it forward. Stoic practice is how you walk the rugged part without melodrama or denial. When the ant crosses your path, think of foundations. Great changes fail in ordinary ways. You sleep too little, plan too vaguely, argue too fast, and expect too much too soon. An empire of attention is built on embarrassingly simple bricks: wake time, food, movement, focused blocks, honest debriefs. The point is not to worship routine, it is to make reliable scaffolding so your better self doesn't have to sprint uphill every morning. Real power often looks boring. The reason tyrants and manipulators fear the disciplined is that routine makes you expensive to tempt. A bird at the window asks for altitude. The Stoics used a mental practice sometimes called the view from above. You take your current problem and imagine it from higher and higher vantage points: the roof, the city, the continent, the planet. Watch what happens to your anger when you place your life inside a larger map. It rarely evaporates, it resizes. The value of altitude is not to belittle pain, but to right-size it so you can move wisely. Strategy lives at altitude. Empathy does too. The spider returns us to that web you're carrying as a picture. Patterns are not accidents. They are the residue of repeated judgments. Neuroscience would say pathways fire together. Stoicism would say ascent becomes character. If you keep meeting the same boss in different clothing, the same argument in different kitchens, the same scarcity under different salaries, the common element is the judgments you bring to the table. This is not blame, this is leverage. You cannot change what another person chooses. You can change the inner story that keeps you walking back into the same room. And the frog? Think of water, of cleansing, and of crossing. You cannot think your way out of every tangle. Some knots untie when the body can finally exhale after a run, after tears you fought for years, after a conversation where you said the one sentence you thought would end the world and discovered it, freed it. Stoic training includes deliberately choosing mild discomforts, fasting, cold air, hard workouts, not because pain is a virtue, but because the nervous system learns it can carry sensation without panic. When you train that, hard feelings stop feeling like emergencies. The frog marks the passage from stuckness to movement. Its leap is what you feel when you act cleanly after weeks of delay. To understand how these principles live when the weather turns, step into 3 lives carried here as composites to protect the private while honoring the real. First, a preventable downfall. He was the rising lead at a fast-growing company, celebrated for speed and bold bets. What he did not see was the quiet erosion of trust. He read every coincidence as a sign of favor. He swapped preparation for bravado. He mistook the appearance of allies for loyalty and the presence of risk for proof that he was special enough to outrun it. Meetings became performances, feedback became insult, deadlines slid because the market is on our side. When the economy hiccuped, the team needed a calm pilot who saw clearly what belonged to them and what did not. Instead, they got a gambler praying for tailwinds. Contracts soured. The board replaced him. The tragedy is not that he fell. Markets are rough. The tragedy is that he fell in places he could have stood. Had he practiced the dichotomy of control, he would have separated narrative from preparation, applause from execution. Had he trained voluntary discomfort, he would have found out whether his plans survived contact with a cold morning and a hard truth. He was not defeated by external enemies. He was betrayed by the unchecked habits of his own ruling principle. Downfall avoided? Not always. Downfall made less likely? Often. Second, the delayed awakening that taught a brutal lesson. She was a nurse in the loudest ward of the quietest hospital. She took the toughest shifts, filled the holes in the schedule, and kept a secret scoreboard where points only counted when she suffered. Everyone praised her reliability. Few asked how she was. She believed refusing help was virtue. She believed her worth was proven by exhaustion. When she started waking with dread and ending shifts without memory of the last hours, she assumed the solution was more grit. Then, a small spider began appearing near her locker. She hates spiders. She brushed it away every day, and every day the web returned, fragile and perfect. Not a sign, just a mirror, patterns. She saw it first in the charting, then in the way she nodded at requests before thinking, then in the way she apologized when others snapped. She tried to change her feelings. That did nothing. She changed her judgments. She rewrote the inner rule. If I say no, I'm selfish, became, if I say no to what harms, I can say yes to what heals. She practiced one boundary a day. She told a colleague, I can trade shifts next week, not this one. She took a slow lap outside between codes. She cried once behind the oxygen cages and judged herself less for being permeable. The web changed, not because the hospital softened, but because she stopped rehearsing self-erasure. Awakening delayed is common. The mind protects us until we're strong enough to feel. Her strength did not look like armor. It looked like accurate self-respect. Third, a transformation that worked precisely because it was small and relentless. He taught high school literature all day and coached boxing drills 3 nights a week in a folding chair gym next to a laundromat. He drank coffee too late and scrolled too long, and blamed both on the demands of teenagers. He didn't need a revelation. He needed a routine that didn't collapse when life moved. He made a compact: wake at the same time, walk in cold air for 10 minutes, 1 page of journaling on what is and isn't in his control today, 15 minutes of focused prep for the one class most likely to wobble, 1 honest conversation per week with a student he was avoiding. He treated these not as heroic achievements but as bricks. The first week felt ordinary. The third week, his energy steadied. The 5th week, he noticed he was quicker to laugh and slower to flame. In the gym, he taught the same lesson with his hands that he practiced with his mind. Breathe under pressure. Keep your guard where it belongs. Do not chase punches you can't land. One afternoon, a parent meeting went sideways. He felt the spike, heard the old script win the room, and chose the new one, win the next breath. He did not become perfect. He became dependable. That is what students remember, and it's what we all trust in ourselves when stakes rise. Thread these arcs together, and you can feel the spine running through them. Perception trained, judgment clarified, choice kept in the light. The animals we began with: transformations butterfly, routines ant, altitudes bird, patterns spider, cleansings frog, are not commanders of your fate. They are mnemonics. Let them remind you of the only province where sovereignty is lawful: how you see, what story you tell, and where you place your next step. There is a useful question hidden in each image. When life is dissolving, ask, what identity am I clinging to that no longer fits the life I actually want? When ambition shoots ahead of basics, ask, what are the 3 bricks today that make tomorrow possible? When you are lost in a hallway of mirrors, ask, what does this situation look like from the roof? When the same trouble knocks again, ask, which of my judgments invited it, and which one replaced would close the door? When your chest is heavy and your mind invents 1,000 explanations, ask, what can my body do in the next 5 minutes to rinse this moment clean enough to see? To make this real, carry a few simple practices into the week. In plain English, first, name what you control, name what you don't, and act only in the first category. That can be as practical as writing 2 columns in a cheap notebook when stress jumps: mine and not mine. Email tone: mine. Stock price: not mine. Preparation: mine. Another's opinion of me: not mine. The nuance is that some items blur. Reputation can be influenced by consistent character. Outcomes can be nudged by excellence, so add a third column for influence and list the ethical levers you can pull without twisting yourself into someone you won't respect. Next, meet your impressions at the door. When you feel the hit, anger, fear, flattery, say to yourself, "This is an impression, not a verdict." That sentence buys space. In that space, you recall your posture, direct your attention, interrogate the story, and choose the smallest effective action. If you want a line to repeat when adrenaline spikes, use this: "I command my judgments, they shape my actions, the rest is weather." It's not magic, it's a steering wheel. Practice voluntary discomfort to teach your nervous system that intensity is survivable. Skip a meal without drama, end a shower cold for 30 seconds. Take stairs when the elevator calls. These are not tests of worth. They are signals to your body that you can feel strong sensation and not fuse it with danger. When real difficulty arrives, and it will, you'll have rehearsed the separation between feeling and action. That separation is where character lives. Build ant-like routines that protect your better days from the chaos of your worst. Do not design a palace you don't have time to clean. Choose 5 anchors and be loyal. A waking time, a movement minimum, 1 block of deep work, a closing ritual, and a nightly off-ramp where you lower the mental temperature. Let the anchors be unglamorous. Glamour breaks in heat. Unremarkable systems carry you. Use the view from above whenever your world narrows into a tunnel. Stand at a window or in a stairwell and imagine the map expanding. See the traffic grid, the city's lights, the coastline, the spinning planet. Your problem does not vanish. It finds its accurate size. Strategy belongs to accurate size. So does mercy. When patterns repeat, engage the spider's lesson. Do not call yourself cursed or blessed. Call yourself patterned. Then change one judgment at the root and repeat it until your feet learn it. If you believe saying no is cruelty, you will decorate your prison with empathy and still live in a cell. If you believe conflict proves failure, you will trade truth for harmony and resent the people you claim to protect. Replace the judgment with one that respects both you and others, then practice it aloud in sentences that fit your mouth. The world may not reward you immediately. You are not practicing to win applause. You are practicing to own your life. When the emotional water is filthy, bring in the frog. Clean not by argument but by action. Walk, breathe until your exhale is slower than your inhale. Write the letter you will never send and burn it. Tell the one person who has earned your trust the one thing you have not wanted to say. Sleep in a room that forgives you for being human. Cleaning is not a luxury, it is maintenance. Your mind is equipment. Keep it in working order. There is one place where Stoic clarity meets the cold engines of power, and it's worth naming carefully. You live in systems where incentives sometimes reward cruelty, where loudness can drown out care, where a calm center looks naive to the desperate. The Stoic does not deny this. The Stoic chooses boundaries. Machiavelli described the world as it often behaves. The Stoics describe the person who can move through that world without becoming what he studies. Use strategy without losing decency. Recognize games without playing them with your soul. Learn people's incentives, because kindness is more effective when it is not blind. But let your core contract stay intact. Do not cheat. Do not humiliate. Do not hand your dignity to anyone in exchange for approval you will not respect in 10 years. Let's close the loop we opened in the first minute. I said there is one faculty that, once trained, makes omens quiet down because you start listening. It is the ruling principle, the power of choice. Not a grand metaphysical freedom to rewrite the universe. A humble, everyday freedom to choose your judgment before it chooses you. Train it by meeting impressions with awareness, by telling yourself the truth quickly, by acting where you have leverage and releasing where you do not. When you keep that faculty in the light, you notice the butterfly and understand you are supposed to shed, not perform. You meet the ant and build the foundation you have postponed. You watch the bird and claim altitude instead of theatrics. You see the spider and change a judgment instead of a job. You meet the frog and clean the water, so your next move is not made in murk. The animals don't command you, they remind you. The web glistens because the morning is honest. What you learn to carry out of this is not a list of hacks, but a posture. Stand with your attention in your hands. Let your values be the architecture you live inside, not a mood board you consult when convenient. Make peace with the fact that growth feels like loss up close, because it is the death of an identity, and there is grief in every genuine rebirth. Refuse the two cheap paths, magical thinking and hardened cynicism. They look different, both are abdications. Choose reality, trained. If you want to know where to begin tomorrow, begin in the first 5 minutes. Wake without borrowing pain from your inbox. Name one thing you control and one you do not. Put your body in motion so your brain has a moving platform. When an impression hits, practice the line you now know. I command my judgments, they shape my actions, the rest is weather. Build one ant brick, even if the day collapses later. At lunch, take 30 seconds for the view from above and resize what is swallowing the afternoon. Before bed, ask which pattern tried to recruit you and what sentence you will use to answer it next time. From here, a natural next chapter is negative visualization, not to haunt yourself with doom, but to immunize your mind against shock, to appreciate what you have with sharper gratitude, and to rehearse steady action in imagined storms so that real storms find you already holding the wheel. Another chapter is time as a Stoic discipline, calendars as moral documents, schedules as ethics in motion. These are not side quests, they are how principles become days and days become a life. Look again at the web in your mind's eye. Every strand is a practiced ascent, every junction a choice repeated until it became you. If you do not like the pattern, cut one strand and lay another. If your life is noisy with omens, make it quiet by listening where it counts. The world will continue to send weather, some of it bright, some of it brutal. Your task is not to demand a different climate. Your task is to be a ship that sails true within it. When you do, the signs stop feeling like orders and start feeling like companions. And, perhaps for the first time in years, you recognize that the commander you were waiting for has been here the whole time, patient, clear, and ready to be obeyed.